Welcome back to another episode of the Real Me Podcast, where I've been making a lot of episodes lately. Well, expect a lot more until mid-October because Pluto is really digging up a lot of stuff right now in my life and in my psychology and in my soul right now. I am really, really feeling this Pluto retrograde so much. I don't know if you're feeling it. I don't know if you're having to dig up a lot of, things from yourself and transform and face these things. But for me, it's really intense right now. Pluto doesn't mess around. He comes to your door and shouts, is like the big bad wolf. If you don't, respond, he's gonna tear it down. This quote encapsulates how I will live my life. Mark my words. Everything that I said in that money cannot buy happiness episode boils down to this. Boils down to this. It's amazing how beautiful life is when you live from your soul, not your ego. Agreed. Now, I think that it is imperative. I would be absolutely remiss if I did not do a video on the ego and the soul. So I want to do that on Sunday, as soon as I can get to it, besides the astrology and besides the Saturn placement, which I do on a weekly basis. I want to get to that video as soon as possible because I want to delve into the difference between the ego and the soul so badly. And I want to share the information with you so badly. It's not even funny. This is how I will live my life. Anything other than this, forget it. I'm not living that way. I'm not living in this conditioned way when it comes to my life and when it comes to money. No, absolutely not. You know what? Do I really have empathy in my soul for those who said, I've worked so hard for the life I have, and darn it, you should be so grateful for that. Guess what? You weren't in your soul when you said that. You're in your ego. If you're in a proud, preachy place, where you are preaching how, um, how you want to live your life, how, you know, excuse me, how what you've done in terms of the ego. If you're living in your ego, you're living in the dark ages. You're living in the dark ages. You're living in the last century because let me tell you, people like, Segura, Eckhart Tolle, Colbert Reed, Sonia Chiquette, Lee Harris all advocate for living spiritual, intuitive, self-centered lives. Go follow Sonia Chiquette. Talks about all about living from your intuition. I would go to her to talk about living from the soul-centered place of your intuition. She really, really has a lot of great content with that, and she is much more expert in that than I am. But I'm going to tell you what I can tell you about this. This encapsulates how I will live my life, and I will live it. I will live it. And that's what all that I said in that podcast boils down to this. That's the underlying, this is the underlying point that I was making in that podcast. And if, and I don't want to sit and have my conditioned self say to myself, oh, well, you know what, that's a problem because of this factor in reality. Well, you know what? No. all the things I said were true, and I'm not changing it. I'm not taking back anything that I said. I'm just clarifying that this is what I meant. This is the point that I was getting at all along. Is like, and when we were so obsessed with money, 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 not feeling satisfied enough, not feeling good enough, having to work so hard. Oh, you have to earn your way through life. Don't have an attitude that you're entitled in this world. You earn it. Well, ego, ego, ego. There was this thing on Dance Moms where Abby Lee Miller was so mean to to a kid on the show JoJo in season 5, and and her mother was like, she deserves to be on that pyramid. She deserves to be in this. And then Abby screamed like, she deserves this thing. Don't have an attitude that you're entitled to this world because you're not. Don't cry. I will not have no, 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 no crying children. Can you believe how unfeeling that is? Can you just hear how unfeeling that is? That is so not compassionate. That is so tearing somebody down, and that is so mentally and emotionally abusive. I can't even begin to go into it. I can't even begin. That is just wrong. Flat out wrong to shout at a child. And God forbid, Joe, Jojo said to Abby, well, you know, after she said what she said, well, if you're going to yell at me, I'm going to cry. And Abby was like, get out. And so she walked out. Good for her for walking out of a situation that was not true for her, and good for her for standing up for herself. I give her full credit, and I totally stand behind what JoJo said. If you're gonna yell at me, I'm gonna cry. Well, she was responding. She wasn't reacting. She wasn't anger. Like she was responding. Well, if you're gonna yell at me, I'm gonna cry. If you're gonna hurt me, that God forbid I should react naturally and I should lead into my emotions with how I feel. God forbid somebody should just lean into and indulge themselves in the emotions that how they feel while feeling good about feeling, not feeling drained and drowned by the emotion. There's a difference. And you'll notice that in your soul, it's in your soul when you feel like, oh, I'm, drowning in emotions. It's like, you have to separate those out. So if you're gonna yell at me, I'm gonna cry. She stood up for herself. She stood in her truth, stood in her integrity, and Abby wasn't having it. Because, Abby is not choosing, she didn't choose to look at herself in the mirror and really, really face the shadows inside of her that she needed to face. She was just pushing it away and rejecting it because she wasn't willing to be humble enough and be self-aware enough to look at her own self in the mirror and see, wow, I emotionally abused this child in this situation. I was emotionally abusive to this child. I was uncompassionate, inconsiderate. No, she resisted. She resisted because she was triggered. In that episode, you see how triggered she is. It is a wound that she has. Oh, a wound inside herself. This limiting belief that she had that, oh, you have to earn everything. And when JoJo's mom said that, it triggered that wound, and she projected and took her anger out on JoJo, and she reacted. because she was triggered, because she didn't have the self-awareness and wisdom enough to process and work through that emotion and really look at herself very, very deeply with that. That's the truth of it. She was in her ego. She reacted the way that she did. She was in her ego. Because if you were in your soul, you wouldn't treat somebody that badly. It's like coming back to money. We do not have to earn our way through life. And that is just a fact. That is an ego thing to say. Oh, you must be oh so much in logic and you must work so hard and you must earn. Well, I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live in that world. Ouch. That hurts me. That hurts me. Wow, that's cruel. Wow, that's cold. And that is so unfeeling. And that is so, you know, you know, just cruel and mean and inconsiderate and not compassionate to have, to preach to somebody that way. Still to this day, that article that I read about, oh, you have to earn your way. Well, you know what? Not if you're living from your soul. Earning is an ego word. Deserving is a soul word. And Abby, you are not living from your soul. You are living in a low vibration ego place. And I hope that she has changed since then. She has had really, really devastating experiences in her life that probably, she was in a probably deep state of self-reflection to really look at herself like, wow, a lot of things about myself I need to change. This limiting belief that we have to earn our way through life. We have to earn everything. Well, that is not true because that is cruel and that is unfeeling. This universe, that is saying that the universe is cruel, that the universe is unloving and inconsiderate and not supportive. It's like no. This world is a much kinder place, and this universe is a much kinder place. She was living in a really, really negative and dark and unfair and divisive reality. And she was projecting that on, she projected all these things in the show onto children, yelling at them and hurting them and abusing them emotionally. I mean, it's not even funny. And she is the very embodiment of some of our issues in the world when it comes to people and how mean and cruel they treat each other. If we are all connected to our own truth, and if we live from doing what we love to do, doing what we're passionate doing, knowing that we are fully deserving of love, of happiness, of peace, of the basic simple things in life to make us happy, knowing that we are deserving of that and living from that soul-centered place, then you're not going to be in your ego. I just so feel so passionate about the world becoming such a much more spiritual and kinder place and such a more evolved place. I mean, it's sad all the wars in the world right now and all the, like anger and hate and all that. We need diplomacy. We need love and care and truth and integrity. And it's not a pretty picture right now. It's not a pretty picture. You have wars going on. You have AI taking over and hyper rationality taking over humanity. We have all this stuff. The president of the United States grew up in a very, very unhappy, and very, very difficult narcissistic, egoic childhood. Inspiring somebody to think positively, to have a positive mindset that you are an amazing individual. You can do anything in the world. Lifting somebody up to make them feel good in the world is not making somebody a narcissist. That's not. If somebody praises the person, said you are the best person in the whole wide world or whatever, but was so loving to that person, then that's not going to make you a narcissist. But if you are giving the child low sense of self-worth, cutting them off financially, making $10 seem like a luxury, and making the simple things seem like just they're so fancy or whatever. And if you're taking somebody low self-worth, making somebody feel, unworthy because you're too concerned about your ego self and your false self, like narcissists get, become narcissists because of other narcissists. And the whole, pattern of, living just goes down the pipe of, past generations and in family history or whatever. That Teal Swan healing generational and ancestral family wounds. She's really really much about that. And she does speak about hard truths, but she does it from a spiritual place, and so that is why so many people follow her, and that is why I subscribe to a lot of the things that she has to say, and I'm very interested in a lot of the things that she puts out in terms of her content. And I'm really curious to hear this thing about there's no such thing as deserving, and really hear what her take on that. I hope it's not a cold video. I'll hear what she has to say about that. Um, in a video sometime. Hopefully, I'm not. Bones in my body are just resistant and more resistant and more resistant and more resistant as I watch that video till the end. Um, Praying and hoping, and she is delivering all of her videos from not a divisive and preachy place, but from a loving and compassionate place of wanting to share the truth and wanting to not, she cares in a way where she is not willing to give you any less than the absolute truth of what is going on. She is caring in that way because she doesn't sugarcoat and beat around the bush. She gets right to it. And there's a difference between somebody who gets right to it and is cruel and egoic. So that's what you have to separate out. So, um, the whole society of training you to live in your ego, of training you that you have to work so hard, even for the simplest things, even for the most basic things in your life. Well, you know what? You're in your ego. And I do not subscribe to that aspect of society. And I guess what? I don't have to live in that reality. I don't have to face that reality because I don't agree with it. And I strongly am against that. This is not too good to be true. It is not too good to be true to live a life in a soul centered place. It is not too good to be true. It's not. Everyone is worthy from living from their soul. But no one should live from their ego. If you're living from your ego, you're not in a state of flow. You're not in your intuition. You're not flowing, in the way of the universe and doing what feels right. I mean, I said no vacations. And I mean that. That's what feels right to me. And I'm saying, strongly advising not to, but I'm not. I don't want to keep anyone from living the life that their soul feels right to live in. Look at So she lives in two houses. And do you think that she, got where she was because of her logic and her ego? No, she didn't. She got where she was. She said that she lived an extraordinary life because she followed her intuition. So I'm not here to completely rule out traveling or all that. I'm here to rule out traveling if that means that you're spending money and are so obsessed with living this big life or whatever and doing all that. Living from an ego place of feeling lack, feeling not enough, living from an ego place of comparing yourself and being aggressive and being selfish and having a false sense of self and working so hard and destroying the important things in your life like connections and happiness and relationships and all these things in your life just for money. Really? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. So guess what? For those who tell me, guess how hard I've had to work. Guess what? Nope, 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 no, 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 no. I'm not. Nope. No, I'm not going to engage in that. I'm not going to allow myself to get drowned in that whole thing because that lowers my vibration, and nobody deserves to live in a low vibration way. Nobody deserves to live in that way. No one. No one. Including Abby. Including her. Because everyone's equal. Every creature is equal. You make me sad. It is so sad that you have just become so stoic and become so um brainwashed by this egoic society. Well, we should train our children to follow our souls, not our ego. You've just accepted reality. You've just faced reality. You just grit and bear it. You've just succumbed to all the problems of this world when it comes to living through ego and logic, really? And you're telling me, oh, you've worked so hard for something? Well, guess what? I will only have empathy for you if you do it, if you've said that in a way that's different, in a way that you've lived from your soul and not your ego. I'm sorry, but I don't think that I have enough sympathy in my heart for that. I'm sorry, but I don't. I just don't. Because it's sad. Everything that was coming out of my mouth in that episode and everything that I've said in previous videos on this podcast, including the one that I did last night on clarity, was all soul. I'm going to live in a flowing, intuitive way in my life. I'm not going to be working so hard to restricted and, working, working, working. Oh, it's not enough. I'm not there enough. Oh, work, 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 work even more. No, not there enough. No, 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 no. No. I'm not living that life and I'm not living in that state of being of ego and hard work. Oh, well, this generation, Gen Z, doesn't have the work ethic that we previously. Well, I hate to break it to you, but we're the ones that woke up to some things, no, some truths of the previous generations of how children were raised and how society is and all that. And we're the ones who actually woke up and stood up to all these problems and was like, no, we got to change the game. This is not right. And I am of the Uranus and Pisces generation who is here to revolutionize spirituality, revolutionize the lost lessons that we have got caught in the age of Pisces, coming out of the age of Aries, acquisition, competition, competitiveness, all this stuff, all this stuff, all this stuff. So, revolutionizing spirituality, being on our own personal sovereign spiritual paths, all this stuff. all of this stuff really is to be looked at very, very, with deep, eyes and listening ears and all that. My goodness. The world that we've created is so miserable and so complicated, it's not even funny. Look what we have created a disaster, a train wreck, a, a, a a health fest because of what we created, because of ego. And everybody has to be out for themselves, and nobody can care about anybody else, and you have to be a shark, and you have to, fend for yourself, and you know and fight for things in order to get them, and you have to earn things and all this, and and I'm bigger and better than you, and I'm this and you're below me, and I'm gonna hurt you and I'm gonna abuse you because I need to be in my power, and in my I need to um you know be high and mighty and be the best, and so I need to tear you down. Like, that is all low stuff. That is all the age of Aries coming into the age of Pisces. And now what we've done with the age of Pisces is we've taken all that and we've taken all these spiritual things and we've made them authoritarian. We've made them very, very competitive and divisive and abusive and top down. It's sad. It's sad. It's really, really sad, the direction that humanity has uh, gone in the past. And I deeply am resentful for us when it comes to that. I really, really am. I really, really am, very, very much against that. And I want to make my videos and my content where I am in my own little ways through the astrology, through the contemplations on this real me podcast, and through music, sharing my message of living from the soul, not the ego, living from authenticity and truth, and living from courage to be yourself, and living from love, and all these kind of things. Well, you can be courageous. Courageous doesn't have to be an ego thing. It's not an ego thing. It's a soul thing. The ego keeps you, scared. It keeps you, because ego is, your fear. Ego holds you back because it's like we gotta stay in logic. We gotta stay in the same dumb things that we, did, in our lives because, um, because it's not comfortable to break out. And what if you lose your job? What if you lose your whole house or whatever? It's like the ego holds us back. If you're living from your intuition, your soul, you're not going to be held back, and you're going to live an extraordinary life that Signature Cat lives. Somehow she is as old and I'm not going to say old, but as as wise as she is, living the life that she has lived in her life from an intuitive place. Cold, oh, you're woo-woo, you're weird and all that. Lilith and Pisces, I'm not going to succumb to it. I'm going to be my creative, imaginative, intuitive, weird self that I am, and I'm going to embrace it. Like, that is admirable. And if you go see her videos, you'll really, really hear what I'm talking about. All these tips and intuition, I think that we're really, really on the similar page when it comes to our beliefs about things. And I really, really support her work a lot. I really, really do. So I have a lot of respect for those in the spiritual community, for those in the astrological community, not for the money hungry, individuals. You better have some depth to you. You better have some, real dropping in connection to you when you talk about working so hard, because you didn't. I'm not going to be in a mode of slaving and working away and struggling and unhappy and oh, woe is me, the world is so cruel and terrible. No, I deserve, like, that's Scorpio. That's letting the world take away my own sense of self-worth and peace and value. That's Scorpio. Horus is stable. It is peaceful. It is calm. It is it is love. It's the energy of love. It's the energy of love. It's the energy of peace, the energy of feeling good about yourself with your talents, your abilities, your whole self. It's feeling good about yourself and not living, you know, not living on the backs of and living out of the saga of living in the remains of the volcano that erupted, living in the ego world. Like, I'm not making this up, and I'm not on a cloud, I'm not in fantasy. I'm coming from a real spiritual, emotional place when I say all this. And this is coming from my truth. I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't believe it, if I didn't really feel it. But I think you can tell from this video, I really feel it because I really feel it. I really feel it. And I feel so passionate about this. I want to do this video on the ego and the soul so badly. And I want to put this out so that you can see and get the message across about why we need to live from our souls and not our egos to find true happiness, true contentment, true joy and peace in our lives. Those money hungry individuals, the ones who slave away, the ones who, are this going back to Donald Trump, needing all this money, needing to puff himself up, or needing to blow himself up, and having all these business deals, and needing more and more and more money. It's a really, really egoic and low vibration way to live. It's the simple answer to it. So yes, I think that you understand where I'm coming from in this video. And I really, really want to see your comments below this video. And I want to hear what you have to say about this. I want to hear your voice, your thoughts. I want to see it. I want, for those seeing this video, I want to hear what your honest thoughts are on this below in the comments. I do. Because I'm very, very curious, and I think that we all need to band together and create a more beautiful and a more soul-centered world than the one that we're living right now. And all the wars and all the, you know, racism, or, still going on today, I don't know. But, all the, all of this stuff that we've created can, go away. And AI can be used as a tool for um, as an assistant to make lives easier, make our lives easier for sure. But AI can't intuit. AI can't sense and read energy. That we have that human unique skill inside of us that can do that. AI can't do that. So, um, you know, we need to live from a soul-centered place. I feel so strongly about this, very, very strongly. So, thank you for tuning in to this very, very powerful video. And I think I'm gonna get over time. I'm gonna get a lot of support for this, and I sure hope so because we need it. Um, Thank you for tuning in. This was the episode of the Real Me podcast. I will see you in the next episode of the Real Me podcast whenever I get around to it. And yeah. Um, you know, um, yeah. So, yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you found value from it. I hope that you strongly feel in your heart, agree with me about this. And, if you do, then I encourage you to subscribe to my channel, to join this community, to share this video as far and wide as you can, to again comment your thoughts. Like, I encourage all of that, and I invite all of that in. I don't require, I invite. So that's what I want to say, honestly. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.